Welcome, everyone. Whether you are joining me live right now or watching the replay later, I am really glad that you are here today. Um, I am Dr. Natasha Guest, and I help small and medium sized practices ensure that their compliance systems can be audit ready, that they're able to handle any type of regulations with CMS, HIPAA, or even state regulators, and to protect the work that they're doing so growth doesn't feel overwhelming and their patient care stays front and center. Now, if you are part of New Era Fest, you are definitely someone that is building something meaningful. And that could be a business, a practice, a creative body of work, or a brand new version of yourself. You did not end up in this space by accident. So today I want to start our time together by naming something that many leaders feel but rarely say out loud. And that is that there is a moment in growth when nothing is technically wrong, but everything feels heavier. The business is working, your people are showing up. From the outside, this all looks like success. But on the inside, you're more alert, more responsible, more aware that if you drop something, it matters. And instead of asking what support you need now, most leaders ask, why does this feel so hard? And if you've ever reached a point where growth stopped feeling exciting and started feeling weighty, this conversation is for you. But before we talk about growth or structure, I want to be clear that this is not a talk at you. This is a conversation with you. And as you listen, I invite you to notice what resonates and what feels familiar. So, I want to tell you a story. It is a story I hear again and again in different forms, and it usually starts the same way. Someone builds something meaningful. At the beginning, everything feels light, it's scrappy, and it's very creative. Decisions are made quickly, mistakes they feel manageable, and if something does not work, you adjust and then you move on. Then the work gains traction. Not overnight and not dramatically, but quietly and steadily. More people begin to show up, more responsibility arrives, and this is the moment no one really prepares you for. And sometimes growth does not always feel like celebration. Sometimes it feels like pressure. Nothing actually breaks and nothing explodes, but things begin to feel heavier. And you notice that you are holding more in your head, you are remembering more details, and you are catching things before they fall. And you're the only person that can answer questions. From the outside, all of this still looks like success. And because of that, instead of saying you need support, most people turn inward and ask themselves, what is wrong with me? This is the part people rarely talk about openly. You begin wondering why things feel harder than they should. You question why you feel tired even when things are going well. And then you wonder why everyone else seems to be handling growth better than you. And almost always, the conclusion feels personal. People tend to assume that they are disorganized, that they are bad at delegating, or somehow they are behind where they should be by now. Here is the leadership shift. When growth feels heavy, it is rarely because you cannot handle it. It is usually because your capacity has expanded faster than your support. And growth pressure is often a signal for you to build support, not prove that you are failing. Most of the time, the problem is not the person. The issue is that capacity has expanded while support systems have stayed exactly the same. Think about the version of you who started your business. That version did not need much structure because there was not much to hold. The version of you now is carrying real weight. This version has clients. This version has impact. This version has visibility. And this version has responsibility. And if no one ever pauses to acknowledge that you need a different container now, then growth begins to feel heavy instead of expansive. This now leads to the second leadership shift. When decisions, expectations, and processes live only in your head, you become the system. And being the system works early on, but over time, it creates constant vigilance. And rest disappears because nothing functions without you. Leadership becomes exhausting when the business cannot hold itself without your constant attention. And this is usually the moment where I see people push harder, they add more effort, they add more vigilance, and guess what? They add more mental load. They become the system themselves. And that approach may work for a while until it does not. When everything lives in your head, you never truly rest. Even when you are technically off, you are still on. Think about it. You go to bed at night, planning to get some sleep, but you're laying there with 1,000,001 questions and tasks that you need to do the following day or the following week. And over time doing that, resentment starts to creep in. Not because you do not care, but because the work has no support without you. This brings us to the third leadership shift. Structure, when it is built with intention, is not restrictive. It is protective. You do not need to be more disciplined. You do not need to be more productive. And you absolutely do not need to become someone else. What you really need is containment. And containment is not about control or rigidity. Containment means having something that holds the work so your nervous system does not have to. And the most powerful systems are rarely flashy. They are quiet, they are steady, and they are supportive. They look like decisions living somewhere other than your memory. They look like expectations being named instead of assumed. And they look like roles being clear enough that problems feel solvable instead of it being personal. And when those things exist, something shifts. Leadership feels lighter, mistakes feel fixable, and you can step away without everything wobbling. And this does not happen because you care less. It happens because the work is now supported. And this kind of structure does not happen all at once. You do not need a full overhaul, and you do not need to fix everything at the same time. You start by noticing. Noticing what drains you the most right now is usually where your structure is missing. And support systems are not a luxury as you grow. They are what makes growth sustainable and defensible. Now, before we go any further, I want to pause and give you a short practical exercise. You do not need to perfect it and you do not need to overthink it. Just write things down as they come. Take a piece of paper or open a note on your phone and write down 5 people or 5 resources you could reach out to for support. These do not all need to be employees or paid help. Support comes in many different forms. As you write each down, I want you to answer this second question next to the person's name or the resource. What kind of support could they realistically help with? Not what you wish they could do, but what they could actually hold. And support is not just helping more. Support is reducing what lives only in your head. And a few examples might be a colleague or peer you can reality check decisions with. Maybe a contractor who can own a repeat task instead of you having to re explain that task every time. Or even a friend or partner who helps you step fully out of work when you're off. There's also non human support, and that matters a lot too. And some examples of that might be a shared document where decisions live so you don't have to remember them. Or even a calendar boundary that protects your recovery time. And then we have the one that we all talk about now, an AI tool that helps draft, organize, summarize, or plan so you're not starting from scratch every single time. And remember, AI, when used intentionally, is not about replacing your judgment. It's about reducing your cognitive load. AI can draft first versions of documents so you're not staring at a blank page. AI can summarize information so you're not holding everything yourself. And AI can help organize your ideas, your policies, any type of workflows you may have so that content is not living in your head. That is all support. Now, I'll pause here so you can finish writing down those resources or that person and answer that question. Okay, now I want you to take a look at that list. I want you to notice where support already exists, where support is absent or is very thin, and where you are still acting as the system. And what you don't see on the page is often the loudest signal. In my compliance work, the biggest issues rarely come from bad intentions. They come from too much living in someone's head. And when knowledge isn't written down or decisions are not documented, or even when the responsibility is left to one person or your expectations are not clear, that is when risk occurs. And risk increases quietly if you don't change some of these things or all of these things. And in compliance, having these systems are not about control or bureaucracy. They are about containment. They exist so that the business does not rely on memory. They exist so that the leader does not carry everything alone. And they exist because the work cannot hold itself if one person is doing everything. It exists so that when you step away, everything still works. This is true for HIPAA. It is true for documentation. It is true for business operations. And it is true for boundaries. Now look at your list from what you just wrote down. I want you to choose one area, make one clarification, write one thing down in plain language. That is how sustainable systems are built, quietly, intentionally, and over time. Now, before we close, I want to invite you to ask yourselves two other questions. What part of growth feels unsupported right now? And what system could hold that instead of you? You do not have to answer these questions today, but I want you to notice which one your body reacts to and notice which one feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is usually where support is missing. Because structure, when done with intention, it is not restrictive. It is an act of care. And the next era of growth is not about you doing more. It is about building what holds us when we grow. And growth always needs structure to feel safe. Now, thank you for being here, for listening, and for being a part of this new era. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it below, and I will get back to every one of them. Have a wonderful day.